Welcome, Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below the video there is a link to get £50 back for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Sleeping Warrior, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello.
Hey everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Any evidence that we can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, what we can calculate it as if there was a container.
Can you show a physical example of gas pressure without a container, though, in real world?
No, but I can just claim PV equals nRT and then say it's okay.
What's the V bit?
It's a volume, Nathan.
Volume of the container that it would be in, then? Because if that was applied...
Yeah, but according to Professor Dave, he says that you don't need an actual container. An imaginary container is perfectly acceptable.
Right. Well, PV equals nRT would result in the volume calculable for the gas that we're currently breathing. The volume would be the volume of space that it has to fill. And you know what? They've got this thing called space. That would be a space that gas could fill. That would be a V, wouldn't it now? So the gas would fill the volume. And the volume it has to fill would be space. So gas would fill it based on that equation. Because that's the volume, isn't it? Space.
No, Nathan, I insist. Professor Dave said it's okay because we can just calculate it. We don't need an actual volume. I'm going to get you a video to debunk you.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry, let me get this straight. The rebuttal from some douchebag is to say that we can just arbitrarily... Who's making that noise? ULE, please go on mute. ULE, please go on mute. We can arbitrarily assign a container to a random volume that hasn't got any containment around it. But we have definitely got a volume of space for gas to fill already, regardless of an arbitrary assignment of a non-container. Because that won't contain gas, will it?
No, I insist. Look, I'm going to screen share, Nathan.
Okay, you insist away.
Screen share. So in this video from Professor Dave, he insists that you don't need to... Let me just make it bigger so you can see it. Need to knock off those subtitles as well.
Don't worry about it.
But it's just going over the text. Let me just knock these off. There we go. He said, look, pressure equals force over area. It's just any hypothetical area. He literally says, Nathan, that you don't need to have a physical area. So I'm going to cite Professor Dave to debunk you, and you're now debunked.
But then there would be no pressure if it's not pressing against anything.
No, maths is reality. Maths is true. You can't say the maths isn't work. Are you saying that the maths doesn't work?
No, it's just virtually pressing on things.
Are you saying that the maths doesn't work, Nathan?
Sorry, you're asking me? I'm saying you need a container for gas pressure. I mean, this might work with this.
No, it works in the maths.
Sure,
you can demonstrate it in the maths.
You've shown me on screen. Right, you've got a block. Looks like a block of wood with the word force written on it, pressing against the surface. Well, gas is unbonded, so it doesn't look like this. So if, for example, you replace that block with gas, it would just go everywhere. It wouldn't push against that one little square. It would go everywhere and fill the volume, the V bit. That's why PV equals nRT has got a V in it and not an A in it.
No, I insist, Nathan. He even says it. I've got the subtitles on screen. He says an area. It's just any hypothetical area. It doesn't have to be a literal solid surface. So you're wrong, Nathan.
Just because he says it doesn't have to be, doesn't mean that you can contain gas without a container. It's a necessary antecedent. So while you say you can hypothetically, that means do it on paper. That's fascinating. Now show me gas pressure without a container beyond your fundamentalist religious assertion that the V of space isn't going to be the V, it's going to be an arbitrary container he imagines on paper.
Nathan, can you prove that without a container there can be no pressure?
No.
And can I prove the negative that you can have gas pressure without a container? In other words, the assertion the globe makes about the globe and its natural law violation, I need to prove that, do I?
Yeah, because you're saying that you need to have a container. So I'm asking, can you prove that without a container there can be no pressure?
Yeah, I got what you did. And I also will give you props for a very, very clever, probably the most clever burden of proof reversal we've had here to date. Excellent work, Anthony.
Just playing the role of a baller.
But that was better than they do it. You almost got it past me.
Well, I think we can conclude that Professor Dave says that you can calculate a container into existence and get a gas pressure. And we say, no, you've got to demonstrate that it's possible, not that you can calculate it, boys. Oh, and in this video, this is a really good video. He's actually calling Professor Robitaille, who's a respectable guy. I'm not saying he's brilliant. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying I disagree with him. Just saying that he's calling this PhD a moron. He actually compares flat earthers to PhDs. So thank you very much, Professor Dave. I've never been compared to a PhD before.
Woohoo! Well, technically, the calculation is correct. It does work. It's just that if you want to put the test to the theory in the physical world, you'll actually need a container in order for the calculation to pan out as it did.
Correct.
Oh, no, I agree that the calculation works out, Arwin, because maths always works out. Even if the maths is wrong, it still works out. Just doesn't match observations in real world. That's the point I was making.
Yeah, it's the distinction between physics, that would be the physical world, and it being demonstrated in physicality, and maths, calculating if you've got a hypothetical container. Well, a hypothetical container doesn't actually contain anything in real world. So calculate this amount of gas. Oh, what's that? It just filled the actual container it had to fill. Yeah, that's why it's got a V in the law. The volume. The amount of space it has.
Hold on, Nathan. Hypothetical containers can hypothetically contain hypothetical gases.
That's correct. Hypothetically, hypothetical containers can, on paper, in maths, in an abstract description of something that doesn't exist in reality, contain gas in abstract maths. That's correct, Darwin. In reality, though, we need a container.
So we don't need to demonstrate it then if hypothetically it works.
Well, hypothetically isn't reality, though.
No, but it's hypothetical. That's okay.
No, it's not. Not if you want to claim that that's your world and that your world works in violation of an actual natural law that does definitely deal with the physical and natural world. Then no, your mathematical abstractions aren't going to cut it because we've got laws of nature. And this violates that. I.e., a gas not expanding into the V, the volume. Yeah, that volume is space and gas would expand into it. It's the volume of space it has to fill. And space is a space, making space fake. No, the sky is not a vacuum and availability of V volume for gas to fill, or it would fill it, and we'd all be dead.
Anthony, you know the way that all the gas is being held without the container. How are apparent orbits containing that gas, causing the pressure? How are they doing that?
Apparent orbits of Jupiter, you mean?
Apparent orbits, gravity, apparent orbits, yeah.
How are they? Oh, right. How are
Hold
they?
on.
How are
What's
they
an apparent
containing
orbit?
that gas? Only in the math.
Stop. I need to clarify what Brian's asking. What's an apparent orbit? Orbits are begging the question fallacy. What do you mean apparent orbit? What's apparent about orbits? Where are we observing this?
Well, no, that is the effect of gravity that we will observe, described by Albert Einstein, whose theory of general relativity is the current
hold on. I know it's described by hold on, Brian.
Professor Dave.
Brian, hold on. I know it's described by Einstein. That's the problem, right? I don't care about the description. I need to know about the manifestation, the physicality of it. That's what I need.
Well, it would only be apparent anyway, Nathan.
Yeah, apparent means seeing it. Where's it apparent?
Well, it's in these maths. Supposedly we can see it somewhere.
It's in the map.
Where can we supposedly see orbit? What's
Just like the geometric horizon. Yeah.
Sorry, hold on.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I mean,
guys,
obviously-
please. Where are we seeing bodies of mass falling around other bodies of mass in this presuppositional description of orbit? Where are we observing? Where is it apparent, please?
I have to get back to you on that one. I'm not sure where we actually see that, but the claim that gravity is causing a pressure gradient means that apparent orbits, that I don't know where we see them, I have to get back to you and say, but apparent orbits, wherever they happen, are causing a pressure gradient.
Hold on. A pressure gradient is an assertion that gas go down, go boom, boom, like bouncy balls poured into a fish tank. So again, we talked about hooray for PhDs being compared to flat earthers, but when you've got PhDs like Thunderfoot Clown asserting that gas go down, go boom, boom, like bouncy balls poured into a fish tank, and that assertion, i.e. they're pulled down with gravity, gives you the differential and gas pressure gradient, that's an assertion that gas go down, go boom, boom.
Well, no, Professor Dave obviously is invoking gravity, and I'm just keeping up to speed with the current description of it, which is apparent orbits. That's why I was asking Anthony how the apparent orbits, create the pressure.
Somehow you've managed to bring us back here, Brian. I don't know how you've done it, but kudos. So did we just do this? Apparent orbit? Where's it apparent again?
Well, it means that we would see it.
I know what apparent means.
Hey, you're begging the question. Come on.
Look, I know, I'm not going anywhere with
what
this.
Brian's trying to say.
Yeah, I'm just stating the current gravity. So if they're claiming gravity is causing a pressure gradient, I'm just asking Anthony, like, how apparent orbits that we don't see, but we would see them because they're apparent if they happened, how that's causing a pressure gradient. Because gravity is not a force. Sorry, never mind me. I'm just.
I don't have an answer.
Sticking with.
I don't have an answer.
I'm just keeping up the speed with pseudoscience.
Well,
I don't have a clue.
I think 10th man was trying to get it through. 10th, go ahead.
What everybody observed here was an honest person trying to double speak, and he couldn't.
Yeah, he did struggle. Anthony did better than Brian, it's got to be said. It's not in his temperament. Brian's too nice a person.
Anthony's a lawyer.
I'm just demonstrating how they double speak it and flip the burden of proof or calculate into existence stuff. Just applying some of the tactics that they use to explain away why they can't have this demonstration of gas pressure without a container. And the answer is because you can't do it. It debunks their model, but they won't accept it. They'll do anything.
It's that word calculating, right? It's almost like another one of their hypnosis words, right? We just say we calculate this, and all of a sudden, it's true. Like, that wasn't any more true for me until I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say, we know we went to the moon because we calculated how much fuel they would need to go to the moon.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it's like saying, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It's like saying we know unicorns are real because we've calculated the digestive tract of a unicorn and how many calories it burns, and therefore how much food it would utilise. Therefore, we've proven unicorns.
Wouldn't they have used the R value to calculate the?
Yes. And I hope this happens more.
Needed that, but
They really sent a man to the moon because they have
Owen.
weighed how much food he had to take with him.
Yeah, it's easy to just let him get the statement out. Adam, please can you repeat that? Because I'm going to give props to Eli in a minute for using Black Swan to debunk space, which you're about to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, if they were going to do that, then all of the calculations would have been orbit-based, and therefore, intrinsically, at the heart of all of that, they would have to use the R value.
Correct. Black Swan, baby. Debunking space with Black Swan. I absolutely love it. Props to Eli who did it yesterday. And I was left in stunned amazement. I'm like, man, no need to even go to gas pressure without a container. absolutely brilliant argument, but he didn't even need it. And neither does Adam. I love it. Right, quick shout out to Godzilla, who gave me the comparison a moment ago for the unicorn. So thank you, Godzilla37, for the super chat first and foremost. What's harder to quote unquote prove? The globe model or a unicorn? Question mark. At this point, I'd say unicorn, because a rhino with a bit of paint will get it done.
I'd just like to say on a more serious note, though, all jokes aside, any mention of gravity in any way, shape, or form from here on in, as far as I'm concerned, is apparent orbits, as that's how it was described by Albert Einstein in his theory of general relativity, which has been the mainstay, currently held description of gravity by mainstream science since 1915.
Right. The bending of space-time would give you those orbital mechanics. That's correct, Brian. And they're taking what is described as a begging the question fallacy assumption of orbits into a conceptual medium to describe them with Einstein. That's precisely right. Yes, that's right.
What? But that
It's
makes
right,
no
but-
sense. Because I thought that orbital mechanics were Newtonian in nature.
Yep. No. They've been
Like, how do
transposed
we
into...
even calculate an orbit
hold on, Arwin.
when,
Yes.
when
God, Arwin,
Einstein
please.
calculations can't use more than one source of gravity?
Yeah, maybe
Apparent
just
orbit.
ask the question and then let Brian actually answer it.
Go on, Arwen, ask the question.
Well, I'm surprised. What does Einstein have to do with orbits? Because I thought that Einsteinian mathematics don't allow you to even calculate for more than one source of gravity, which is what an orbit is. It's supposed to be exactly that. Two bodies.
Yeah, but he states it as apparent orbits.
What does that mean?
It means
Not
it would
actual?
appear-
Not actual.
not actual, yeah. It would appear.
Oh, good. So he can't actually calculate it. Well, let's just not go there then.
They do
Why
actually
don't we
have a-
stick to Newtonian mechanics? Because it
Because
can calculate
No,
it, right?
stop,
the
stop,
reason
stop.
we
Stick with Einstein. They do actually give a visual demonstration of this. They literally reify fabric of space into fabric of bendy material, and they drop a bowling ball on the middle and call it the sun, and then they roll a ball around it and say that bent fabric of space-time is what causes the orbits, when they describe it with visual reification of fabric of space as fabric of material.
But hold on,
And they
that's not
still
a
don't.
calculation. That's a visualization. That's a metaphor. That's not actually showing you it.
Yeah.
no, but that's still incorrect. What they show is still completely incorrect. That is not the bending of space-time.
No, I know.
What they show
I know,
with
because what that does show
ball.
is that all the balls that they throw around, they all accumulate in the middle, like they're going down a plug in a sink. Now, obviously, if that was true, then we would all be sucked in by the sun. But they say it's because they can't maintain the velocity, and there's too much friction in the material slowing it down. So you just got to imagine it continuously holding its velocity. That's what they say.
That's incorrect. Special relativity, space-time is flat. General relativity's uneven distribution of mass causes the curvature of space-time. So the very center of the globe Earth, and the very center of the moon, and the very center of the sun would all be in direct alignment, but they all have their own gravity well. That's what that is. So that's actually a false equivalency, what they're showing. And they try to explain it that way then because they fill in the blanks that Albert Einstein left it there for them to fill in. Or they just don't understand what he's talking about, which is very likely too.
Sure. But ultimately, we're talking about a description of something that's occurring in a medium that doesn't exist. Pseudo-4 space isn't somewhere that we exist in. So all of these Einsteinian descriptions, regardless of how right or wrong the reification when they show kids bent fabric, is irrelevant because it's not a place that actually exists. This is being described in a non-real place by maths. So what, because we can describe it in the non-real place, it makes it applicable? No.
Yeah,
one of those.
The only reason, sorry lads, just the only reason I brought up the apparent orbits thing is that is the actual description from Albert Einstein for what gravity is. The only description he gave for what gravity is, which is the bending of space-time, is that we would observe apparent orbits. So when people are trying to ask questions, let's say about if we throw a ball up in the air, will it be accelerating down the way and up the way, and stupid stuff like that, when they're trying to infer gravity as a force of attraction between masses or any other nonsense they're trying to infer with mathematics. No, Albert Einstein stated that gravity, the effect of the curvature of space-time, is from an observer's point of view, it would play out as an an apparent orbit. That's it.
So basically,
that's what gravity is. Sorry.
So Brian, what you're saying, it's the if P then Q. So he's putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter what else they say because gravity at present is an apparent orbit for the observer.
Thank you, Brian. Right. Just a quick shout out to Bobby Zines, who says, off topic, but have you ever noticed how a T-Rex skeleton looks like a whale with legs bodged on? Keep up the good work, people. Maybe check out JLB Dino Hoax on his website. He's also got a couple of videos about it on his now revived channel. I think it's called JLB Podcasts. So he's actually gone out and looked at the archetypes. I've forgotten what they call them. There's a particular name for the little bits of wood that they pull out of the ground, and holotype specimens, I think, is the correct terminology. They've got very, very small fragments of these, what they claim are bones, and JLB went to the middle of Australia to go and see them. The bits that have then formed into plaster casts, extrapolated out from, and then formed into these giant structures that are on displays in various different museums. So feel free to check out JLB's information on Dino Hoax. Not something I particularly cover. One of the first things I covered, because my wife was actually the one interested in it, and she dragged me along to the British Museum to go and have a look at some of the claimed to be bones and skeletons that they had on display, because she picked up on the Dino Hoax just as I was picking up on Flat Earth. But there we go, that's just a different subject, but I do appreciate the super chat, Bobby Zines. Thank you very much indeed.
Dinosaurs are real because we have fuel.
So
we have fuel?
Instead of saying
fossil fuel, yes? Did you say fuel?
Yes.
So instead of saying scaredy cat, we now have to say petrified.
Dinosaurs have become fucking oil. Excuse my French, sorry. Just found that quite funny.
So do I.
I just filled up my car with some dinosaurs this morning.
I think it's nonsensical in the extreme to think that a Pakistani whale dog can transform into a tin of Castrol GTX.
Well, it's proven if you go to an accident scene and your car T-boned somebody, it's proven.
They do actually use, I think it's called ambergris, but there's a certain type of whale oil, it's also used in perfumes, that they used to add to certain types of engine oil to stop knock, and then they banned the hunting of those particular whales. I think it's beluga whales. So for a time there was no, I don't think it was actually. I think it was to stop knock in gearboxes. That's why they put that particular whale oil additive. So to say, well, no whale oil, no connection there, well, not necessarily true, actually. But there we go, just a minor bit of trivia.
It was Pakistani whale dog. It hadn't become a whale yet.
Oh, I missed the dog bit. That completely invalidates everything I've just said. Thank you, Adam. I wish I paid more attention. The whale dog. Yeah, right, whatever.
It was still roaming the hills in Kashmir at that point. It hadn't gone down to the sea.
As a devout Hindu, I actually find all this quite offensive. Okay, so can we cut it out?
Hang on, is that why you walk your dog every day, hoping to see that occur in your lifetime?
No.
That's
John's primary, one of his primary quotes, isn't it? Is the evolution of the whale. If you look at it, then the fundamental precursor is a dog-like creature from the hills of Kashmir. Yeah, hence the Pakistani whale dog. Quote.
To the South Park clip where he's talking about a retarded monkey shagging a frog or something. Anyway, just to get us back on track, any scientific evidence of gravity, as we've dragged out the nonsense double speak about pseudo force space being apparent orbits. Okie doke. Scientific evidence for gravity, anybody at all?
Apparent orbits? Would that prove it?
That's scientific evidence, is it?
Oh, no.
So, Brian, would you agree that when Einstein's describing these apparent orbits, we would call that perspective because it's where we see what appears to be train tracks that disappear off into the distance appear to meet, but never actually meet. But because of perspective, they do. When we see something going across the night sky and it appears to form a change in its apparent appearance relative to its actual state, we'd call that perspective, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So basically, if you apply what Einstein says with regards to the uneven distribution of mass, not in the curvature space-time context, but apply it in the real world, you end up with relative density. Einstein must have been a flat earther. He must have been.
Got a question for Bri. If I can on this, it's bugging me now. So apparent orbits, and that's from our viewpoint, yeah? So the mechanics of Mars, Venus, Jupiter will translate to us on Earth viewing them as apparent orbits. Yeah?
Yeah, correct. With us in a heliocentric system
But
falling around
in
the
reality, we don't see the wandering stars giving us apparent orbits. We see them with retrograde motion.
sun. Correct.
So, therefore, it's not an apparent orbit, or is it an apparent retrograde orbit that?
Hold on. Do you observe that occurring, or is it something that occurs the following night in terms of its positional data?
Yeah. Well,
That's not
the point I'm
expansive
meaning, does the model predict that behavior, or does it just predict orbital behavior? Was the point in Einstein's? Because obviously, what you observe and what you then interpret are two different things.
Correct.
So I'm asking whether the apparent orbit is apparently inclusive of that observation as well, or if it just accounts for star behavior as we would understand it, not necessarily the wandering.
Well, I'm more keen to explore because I've waited for the whole discussion for someone to bring this up. I was hoping it'd be a glober. The orbital section, or apparent, or seeing it bit. Do you observe this? I'm going to use my word carefully. Motion in the night sky. Is that actually being observed to quote unquote orbit? Is that actually what you watch happening?
No, it's not. You never see it. It changes. Tomorrow night it'll look different than tonight, but you won't see the change happening.
So you
observe a small amount of travel, don't you, in the night sky of the star? You see a small amount of rotation around your viewpoint of it.
Rotation?
Well, yeah. Rotating above my head, yeah.
No, not that rotation. I'm talking about orbital rotation.
No,
That's assumed to be observed, apparent, visual, we see it. Those are all the words you just used. Now, we've got past the conclusion. Brian's already made it. I don't know if Brian wants to repeat his last statement so I can actually conclude.
Yeah, we see something tonight, and tomorrow night it looks different, but we don't see the actual thing happening.
So we don't actually observe orbits then?
No.
So they're merely a presupposition based on an extrapolation, based on an observation of the night sky and then an observation of the following night sky. Its pattern extrapolated out into this assumption of orbit, correct? So we're not watching it actually happen then. It doesn't actually happen at all. We don't have orbits anywhere.
Well, with the exception of the sun and moon around the top of our heads, I don't know of anything.
So is that the sun and moon falling, or in the case, sorry, I got broken down now, the moon falling around a spherical Earth and an Earth and moon system falling around a spherical sun? Is that what is being, and I use my words carefully, observed to happen, Brian?
No, we don't observe that.
Right. So we don't observe orbits then. It's merely a presupposition begging the question fallacy.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Right. Anybody who's heard me in the chat going, yeah, orbits begs the question, and they just hand wave it. No, it doesn't. Yes, it absolutely does. Show me orbits.
I think is the point you're making, Nathan. Einstein's a cheeky scrote. Look at him begging the question here.
Yeah, assuming orbital mechanics.
Yeah, well, he's saying it will be an apparent orbit. Yeah. So in saying so, he's yeah, I suppose it is mechanics.
Yeah,
anyway.
you've used his language, and he's saying the word apparent. Well, apparent means you'd see it. Well, when you get to actually down to the nitty-gritty of what you actually see, do you actually see it being an orbit? And the answer is no.
So it's not an apparent orbit, you see.
Exactly. Not apparent. We're not seeing it happening. It's not a phenomena to study. Oh, well, it looks different the following night, and if I track that as though it had moved in an analog linear fashion, then it's in a moving orbit. Well, no, because you'd see it moving around it. And we don't. But you extrapolate out from the following night's data that that's what it's done to move into that position, moved in an analog fashion. Well, it hasn't. It's presented itself in a very digital fashion now, hasn't it? It moved, it was in one position, then it's in the next. Like a digital clock. Doesn't have a hand that moves from one position to the next in a sweeping motion. That would be analog. It starts in one position, like a number 9 on a clock moving to a 0. The next digit along. There's no in between. Well, that's what the stars do.
Yeah, there are some claims from some of these Jesuit astronomers and stuff that there's moons orbiting around things like Jupiter and stuff like that. But we never see any of that.
Right, it's an extrapolation. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear from a globehead. Yeah, we've got there on our own with a lot of jokes in between, which is fine. But, you know, that's what I was hoping that we would get. Somebody saying, yeah, we do see them. Let's look at this light in the sky. Okay, is it moving in an orbital motion? No, it is not. Well, the following night, it's in this position. And?
Well, could any of these people that are on our opposition side, can they actually show us a video? Like we have 4K and 8K video. Now, can they show us a video of these orbits?
What use is that when the video is going to come from a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum? Or we get what we already know, which we can take ourselves.
But that's what I mean. I mean, like a video from the ground of this thing supposedly happening.
It doesn't happen though, does it?
No.
Right. So what's next? Give us a picture of it happening from a second law of thermodynamics sky vacuum? No.
No, we won't be accepting that.
Probably is already out there. Video from space of showing something falling around something else. Probably in existence.
Yeah, they'll never be able to give you show you an orbit from the ground looking up, because it doesn't happen. They can only show it to you as a cartoon-like video made in a sky vacuum that doesn't exist.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No, but if we make a couple of assumptions, we can calculate it.
Well, the sun is at a different part of the sky each day, so there's no. You wouldn't even. You'd have to measure it every day for a whole year, even if you could.
No, we can just assume a couple of things and then we can calculate it. It's fine.
Okay, sorry, we can do that.
Yeah, you hear that word calculate? It's like abracadabra.
Yeah.
It's also like
sorry.
assumption. Assumption is like it's like, what's the word? It's like the poisonous ivy to us, isn't it? It's like kryptonite to us. It's like you're pulling out an assumption. How dare you?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I should have remembered we can calculate and assume it.
Well, the heliocentric.
Just going to say, make the assumption. Just make the assumption, calculate it into existence, and then we're living on a ball in a heliocentric model.
Yeah, I'll dovetail from that. The heliocentric model only works with their calculations, which cannot be proven in reality.
Well, wouldn't a better question be for the? I've never mind.
Okay. If it's never mind, I'm going to use that opportunity to do a couple of shout outs, because typically when I do members only chat, or when I first started, there's less than 100 people members. Now there's more than 100 people members, and they're chatting away quite happily while this live stream's going on. So I'm going to shout out a few of them. Shout out to Guns and Navarone, Colin Dresser, Arwin, who's a mod, Godzilla, who's been super chatting. Colin, thank you very much indeed for all your comments. Same goes for Godzilla. David Reed, good to have you, my friend. Really appreciate the support. Thank you for becoming a member. Again, Chris Berry, Godzilla. Is that Plunder23? Nice to see you. Good to have you. Tip of the day. Thanks for chatting away. What else have I got? Have I missed anybody? David Reed, tip of the day. Unicorn Laser Eyes. Good to see you all chatting away. It's nice that the flow of the chat is still good, even though it's members only most of the time now. So shout out to everyone in the chat. Really good to have you all.
Don't forget Bible Literalist.
Bible Literalist's a mod, but shout out to Paula. Hey.
Well, she's there.
I'm shouting out the members. Anyway, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics, as we're very much into this subject at the moment?
Not yet.
You're not leaving anything for me to say, Neil.
Not yet.
We're asking for science for the globe. Not even completed methodology, just hypotheses. Got to be something, right? God, the
Yeah, I
days
wonder if any. Sorry, Nathan.
I was just going to say, the days of people barking Cavendish experiment in quotes at us is obviously well long gone now.
Oh, and I thought you would have came up with something by now. That's why I say not yet.
When Baldwin is quiet, you leave him alone.
I heard Fight the Flat Earth yesterday. I heard Fight the Flat Earth recently in his hangout with Level is Flat or Flat Water is Flat or something. He's got a name like that. And he still cites Cavendish experiments as scientific evidence for gravity, proof that gravity, well, is a thing. Still cites it.
You expect them to accept it?
He'll just cite it to deceive his audience and think that it's okay.
Do you think he still believes it's a scientific experiment? Or he's just deceiving his audience?
He's deceiving his audience. He knows it's not.
Just real quick, going back to
really dumb.
Going back to Brian and this apparent orbit shit that Einstein was predicting for his general theory of relativity. Was that supposed to be his, I guess in quotes you could say, hypothesis for that?
But he didn't.
And I use it loosely in quotes, right? Like obviously it's not a real hypothesis, but was he saying that that's what we would observe if this was a thing?
What he said was, when he said the uneven distribution of mass causes the effect of the curvature of space-time, that then the curvature of space-time was then called gravity. Now, I don't know.
No, that's not what he said. Not what he said.
What the hell does uneven distribution of mass mean anyway?
Let's not get into it. It's just Brian's
Just means
trying to make
randomness.
Okay, just let Brian make the end of his point, though.
What Einstein actually said was the uneven distribution of mass, right, causes the curvature of space-time. And the bit that Brian got wrong was he said that it causes gravity. No, the uneven distribution of mass causes the curvature of space-time, which we perceive as an acceleration. But it isn't actually an acceleration, as the geodesic paths remain straight. That's what he said.
Okay.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. Nathan, you want to say something before I go?
No, I want you to carry on, Brian.
Okay. I'll start again. What I said, Anthony, was that Einstein said that the uneven distribution of mass causes the effect of the curvature of space-time. And the curvature of space-time was then called gravity. Or gravity was then called the curvature of space-time.
That wasn't what he said. That wasn't what he said. That is right, but that's not what he said.
Okay.
That's why I picked you up on it. You didn't say it properly, but it's fine. It's good.
Okay, fine. Okay. Paraphrasing aside, there's presumably a point beyond that, though, isn't there, Brian, that you're trying to make, right?
Yeah, it's that where I was trying to go with it is that it's been claimed that he said that the curvature of space-time is gravity. Now, I haven't heard him say this. I don't know for definite if he said that, but that's what has been claimed. Now, when he spoke about the curvature of space-time, he spoke about how we would observe apparent orbits. So that means if gravity is the curvature of space-time, then gravity is from our position as a described effect, apparent orbits.
So my words don't apply. Is right. So the definition of Einstein, that general relativity, and I quote, this is quotes, the effect of the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass, end quote. He then elaborated and said, although the geodesic path remains straight, the apparent perception of a curvature, of curved trajectory, is only by the observer. That's what he said. So what he's saying is, whatever the night sky is, he's saying that everything's moving in straight lines, as if it's like a Pac-Man model, right? That's what he said. Now, we perceive curvature, but I don't know how that translates into anything else, but we perceive a curve that isn't actually a curve, it's a straight line, because the geodesic path remains straight. That's what he said.
Yeah, but you said that I was wrong to say that the curvature of space-time is claimed to be gravity. That is what's claimed to be gravity.
It is, yeah, but you said causes gravity, and it doesn't.
I didn't say causes gravity. I didn't say causes gravity.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
No, I didn't say that. Let me say it again. Hang on, Arwen.
But what is his hypothesis?
Hold on, Arwen. Let Brian defend his position, but it doesn't really matter. I don't want this bit specifically to drag out, but go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. What I said is the uneven distribution of mass causes the curvature of space-time. And the curvature of space-time is called gravity, or gravity is called the curvature of space-time. That's what I said. I didn't say it causes gravity.
Fine.
You did. I'm going to go back and get it just to show it.
Fine. We can deal with it another time. Arwen, go ahead.
Yeah, so Einstein gravity, what is what? How does it do things? So what is his hypothesis exactly for gravity? Because I talked about gravity as a concept, about what I think could be defined as gravity, blah, 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 but I never actually claimed the hypothesis for it. So what was Einstein's hypothesis for gravity exactly?
Great question.
That's kind of like what my question was. Like, I was trying to establish what was this, because this is touted a lot of times as a scientific theory, right? And that would require a scientific method. So we would do hypothesis, experiment. Now, there is an experiment that sometimes, well, I use that extremely loosely, that's touted as being the cowbell for this crap, right?
Cavendish.
Well, I know his hypothesis. I know what Einstein's hypothesis was.
Okay, just let Chocolate finish.
No, but I'm talking about what's touted as the validation for this crap.
Go ahead, Brian.
You guys.
What is it?
Hold on. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the hypothesis was that we would see one second, Nathan, I'll get this right in my head. That we would see stars bending around the sun. That was his hypothesis. That was his prediction.
What?
That was his prediction, yeah.
And then when was that?
Eddington in 1919.
No. Stop. Hold on, Brian. Thank you. Thank you. We've got his. That's not a prediction, though, isn't it? That's saying I expect a phenomena to occur. A prediction would be the presumed cause of that effect, though. If you're going to claim that that's an effect that's going to happen, then a hypothesis would be the presumed cause of that effect.
Yeah, but the cause was the curvature of space-time. That was his hypothesis. That space and time apparently curve to give us the effect of a star bending around the back of the sun.
Sure, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that's asserted then as a cause and effect relationship. Well, for it to be scientifically valid, if he's going to claim that that's a phenomena, an effect, and the cause is described as the bending of space-time, well then, how do you vary and manipulate this concept of space-time? Well, to be an independent variable, first and foremost, you've got to be real. You're also the presumed cause of the effect. But most importantly, in this example, you've got to be able to vary and manipulate it to validate that it is actually the cause of the effect. So just saying, I create a concept and that's the cause of this phenomena I observe, well, no. You've got to vary it and manipulate it. What's it that Anthony says? You've got to wiggle it? What? Show me space-time,
but it's not,
then show me it wiggling.
It's not even the phenomenon he observed. Who was the one that observed this, supposedly?
Even if it is, though, that's fine.
And how long ago how long after that, the Einstein was that?
Einstein was 1915. The curvature, his theory of general relativity came out in 1915. So it's 4 years later. So it was a prediction. He made a prediction that this was happening.
So what you're saying is his quote
prediction
unquote
that would happen, right? Predicting that something's going to happen is like saying, I know that the clock on my hand, the hand on my clock is going to move to the next position. I predict that will happen. It's like, no, number one, if you've got something actually occurring, yes, you've got a phenomena. But that's not a prediction, because in science, a prediction is the prediction of the cause of that phenomena, not predicting that the phenomena is going to occur at a certain time.
And then that phenomena occurring 4 years after the prediction was made. So that's not even a valid scientific theory, because the guy who came up with the theory definitely didn't make an experiment, but did he even have the observation that he said he was going to predict? And that's 4 years after the scientific theory of this nonsense. It's crazy. So in other words, general theory of relativity is not a scientific theory with any experimental validation. That's
Perfect.
Just my
Took the words out of my mouth, chocolate. Exactly. So when they say theory, no, it's not a scientific theory. Predicting that something's going to occur, saying I can predict that if I go to wherever you've got boiling hot springs, I'll see boiling hot springs. There's my scientific prediction. Now I'm going to make a bullshit reason why it happens. Well, no, that's not how it works. Predict the cause, validate it by varying it and manipulating it and seeing if it actually causes it. Not invent something that isn't real and attribute it to the effect in pseudo-4 space. A conceptual medium that doesn't even exist.
This is where the cockerel that John cites is worth citing, because every day the cockerel crows just before sunrise. So you think that the cockerel crowing is the cause of sunrise, and then one day you go down and blow its head off and kill it, but the sun still rises. So therefore you conclude that the cockerel did not cause sunrise. It happened anyway, so it was a correlation, but it wasn't a cause.
Yeah, seeing something happen, I see the sunrise. Well, in pseudo-4 space or in Nathan 5 space, it's because of swamp gas from Venus that causes that to happen. Here's the maths. Well, that doesn't prove a damn thing.
You said Nathan 5 space.
Yeah.
Do we rattle through a few more housekeeping questions, or do we want to stay in space and pseudo-4 space and gas go down, go boom, boom?
So it's all
one more thing about it. Sorry, Neil, you're going to say something?
I was going to say, it sounds like it's all a bunch of crap to me.
Of course it is. He invented geometry because he knew that if he applied the uneven distribution of mass into the real world, you would get acceleration that we now call relative density, disequilibrium. But that is the problem when he applies it to the real world, because that's what we see. He would have debunked gravity if he'd applied it in the real world. So he, rather than apply it in the real world, he applied it in space-time and then gave us orbits instead. It's clever. He knew.
Yeah, but what happened there?
We see these orbits.
We don't.
We don't.
Make them up.
Hold on. Go on, Brian.
Thanks, Nathan. What happened was they couldn't. This is ironic that they couldn't explain the orbit of Mercury. Right. So Einstein's theory of general relativity supposedly explains the orbit of Mercury. So the whole thing is starting from a begging the question premise. It all started from a begging the question premise, and his predictions were just happened to be, not really, but happened to be validated by Eddington 4 years after his theory came out. That's really all that happened. And they didn't, the whole Eddington thing is, they never validated what actually caused it. They never validated that it wasn't refraction, but it didn't matter. All they wanted was something to hold on to, some confirmation bias.
You've got to be careful when talking about the orbits of Mercury and Venus, because blurters lie by omission. They refer to it as retrograde motion, but its actual name is apparent retrograde motion, because it can be apparently described with the heliocentric model. But the fact that they call it officially the apparent retrograde motion tells you that there's something else there that is actually causing this perception. But they want it to be explained by heliocentrism, but they call it's basically their way of telling you an embedded confession. It's apparent retrograde motion supporting heliocentrism. But what is it actually? If it's apparent retrograde motion, there's something else going on. So just watch for them talking about retrograde motion.
If there's something going on at all, Adam, you still there?
Yeah.
Do we observe retrograde motion apparent?
No, we don't ever appear to see the stars going backwards. However, their position the following night, it appears to be retrograded to where it was the previous.
Let me get it straight. When you assume orbital motion based on a perceived digital perception of the movement of the stars translated into an analog orbital motion, there's a problem with the way they calculate it. That problem manifests in them not being able to accurately calculate this claim to be apparent but not actually seen retrograde motion moving in a direction that it shouldn't be. What was it called in the previous model? There was another name for it. I can never remember this. It didn't used to be called retrograde motion. Damn, it'll come to me.
I don't know, I've not heard it.
Another description of retrograde motion when they weren't planets, they were wandering
It
stars.
came from astrology, but the term I'm looking for, Nathan. I'm trying to remember it myself.
Can't remember. It doesn't matter. The point is that when you assume that they're traveling in an orbital motion, the calculations themselves, not even the maths, works. But we don't actually observe this for it to be a problem in the first instance. It's only a problem if you're assuming that their motion is as they describe with orbital mechanics. Well, that's not a problem because it doesn't actually happen. We don't observe it. It's just an assumption based on an extrapolation from what they observe one night and then compare it to what they observe the next. They're not actually seeing this claim to be apparent retrograde motion. It's not apparent. Now, you're saying, well, they say it's apparent because it's a problem. No, apparent means appearing. Actually seeing it. No, we don't see that, though. It doesn't happen. It's just a problem in their maths when they assume orbital motion.
All their knowledge about what's happening in the stars all comes from astrology that was detailing what goes on up in the sky from a geocentric and flat, actually, originally point of view. So they've had to wrap a mathematical model around all that. That's what they've had to do because all the most famous people in the most famous people, astronomers in the global rhetoric, you have Kepler and Galileo. Both of them were astrologers, and so was Brahe. Wasn't heliocentric; he was geocentric, but he was an astrologer too. It all comes. They hate things like astrology and they hate things like religion, but the whole model comes from astrology and from Jesuit Catholicism.
Right.
And Catholics.
It's a philosophy. Is I think the point Brian's making.
Yeah, because it all starts with astrology. Because back at the time of Brahe and Kepler and Galileo, to learn astronomy, you learned the true astrology. Astrology was number one. Astronomy was number two. And I've heard ballers. They wouldn't. I said that to them, several of them, the well-known ones, and they didn't actually believe it. But what they then tried to say that, well, they only learned astrology just so they could learn astronomy. But that's not true either, because Kepler, and I think Galileo as well, but Kepler was definitely, he was renowned for making astrological birth charts for people and things like that. He did this on his spare time. This is something he did. He was like so into it. Now, I'm not being an advocate for astrology. I'm just saying that astrology is where astrology that came from someone on a stationary Earth, and a stationary flat Earth originally, is where all the knowledge of what's going on in the stars, like they call it retrograde motion and all this, that all came from astrology. So when the borers harp on about it now, they're actually talking about astrology without even knowing it.
Yeah, astrology is just the logic of the stars' movements.
Yeah, you look at it and you say, it looks like it's doing this. That's all you can do now.
I'm going a bit quiet because I'm desperately trying to find the name of what it was called before retrograde. I just can't find it. It's not going to come back to me either in this live show, I don't think. Something for the comment section. Let us know in the comments what retrograde was called prior to them being planets. When they were called wandering stars, there was a name for retrograde that wasn't retrograde that eludes me. So if you can let me know in the comments, I'd be very grateful. Any point going through a couple more housekeeping questions? Self-perpetuating Molten core.
Don't you hate it? Don't you hate it when your words go backwards?
Molten core, anybody? Self-perpetuating? Got a picture of Thea smashing into Earth in the story that they made up.
No, we just need P waves and S waves, and then we can calculate it.
I've got the backstory on screen.
Go on then, give us the backstory.
There it is. It's Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow so that it deposits its molten iron core into Earth. Doesn't destroy Earth, and the debris from Thea coalesces into what we now call the moon, which is why the moon is basically the same as Earth. But that's why we've got an extended longevity to our molten iron core. And it hasn't already, based on the time frame they give for the heliocentric system, disappeared and got cold already. Because we've got an oversized one. Well, we've got an oversized one because Thea smashed into Earth because it was on a predetermined orbital path of destruction. But fortunately, it was only a glancing blow. And that's true because they made it up themselves.
Well, that's moon rocks. That's why the moon rocks the same thing on Earth.
You don't hear me giving Nathan the theme song? It's Star Wars, the background while he tells the story.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to add that. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Does that make it more believable?
I just thought you left your mic open and you were working again, Chocolate.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That was actually purpose.
Right, with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, or joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 back for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!